Hi, I'm Sam, your resident fantasy reader.
And I'm Morgan, your romance reader, and we welcome you to Just One More Page,
where it's never just one more page.
This episode, I feel like it's going to be kind of sad, Sam, because we're losing TikTok.
Actually, the day this goes up, we will have lost TikTok.
No, I'm so sad. What am I going to do with my life? Where am I going to get my book recommendations? I'm going to have to go old school. So I have to ask, like, Barnes & Noble employees, being like, hey, what type of books do you like? What if I just find a Barnes & Noble employee that has the same taste as me? That way I can just be like, hey, bestie, tell me which books are good.
I made a TikTok on like my personal account and stuff that basically said the world is going to feel so silent on Sunday. Because it's like every time something happens, whether it's in the book talk community or just in the world in general, people sound off on TikTok and you find information and you find people who are talking about the same things as you and I don't even know what I'm trying to say. It's where people go to vent. And the day TikTok goes out, the day everybody's going to want to vent, the whole world is going to be silent. Or at least our world is going to be silent. And that is such a scary thought.
And also it's really scary too, because I feel like TikTok has become a place where you can like know what is happening around the world. There are definitely things that I see on TikTok. And of course, I always double search things where if I see something on TikTok, I'll look it up on Google or on New York Times to just make sure it's actually credible. And there are things on TikTok that I learned first there. Like, oh, wow, I didn't even know that's happening. No clue. And I also am just going to miss like the people that we've met, the people that we became friends with, the people that, you know, I love their content, and it's just going to be gone.
Listen, take what I'm saying with a grain of salt. But Donald Trump wants to save TikTok. And there's a 90-day extension that he can enact, a one-time 90-day extension that he can enact as the president. And he could do that on day one. Like, we could go silent on the 19th, and then the 20th he could enact the 90-day extension.
I can't believe I'm saying this, but
I can't believe it, but Donald Trump.
I can't believe I'm saying that. I'm wanting to gag. I'm trying not to gag. Please do it for us, please. If not, you know, we all know where we're going to go next. Wink, wink, wink. I'm not going to say the word, but you get the point. Anyways, listen, this week is going to be tough with TikTok, with other things happening in the world. You know what you can do? Always pick up a book, go to the bookshop, buy a book, relax, read a book. It's not going to be the end of the world with TikTok on, although it's going to be really hard.
Listen, it like the biggest book release since Harry Potter is coming out this week. And the book talk girlies ain't going to be able to.
Oh my God. Can we please talk about the fact that people are going to Target and taking
swapping the dust jackets?
That is shady. I don't like that, Sam. I don't like that.
I know, they're literally like, make sure you check your book because what's on the dust jacket may not be the book that you're getting. And I'm like, that is sketchy.
Also, I would never do that. As much as like I'd love to get my hands on like certain books, like you're ruining the chances of her becoming like winning, or not winning, but getting like New York Times bestseller. Because the reason why books come out Tuesday is because on Monday is when the New York Times, the other book publishing that track like how well a book's doing to be on like New York Times bestseller list, the books come out Tuesday because on that Monday is when they release it. And so when you get books before it's supposed to be published and you steal them, they don't count. So you're stealing these books and you're hurting the writer and you're just being selfish, and you're also messing up Target's or other places' inventory. And also you're going to be screwing another book reader, because what if this book reader is so excited to get this book, they get it and they're like, what is this? Nope. And I just think these people are shitty people. So don't do that. That's not good. Just wait, be patient.
I know, there'll be revolts. We don't have TikTok to talk about it.
I promise you, without TikTok there, we're not going to have any spoilers, okay? We'll be fine. So it's not like you have to read it in like 1 minute. Okay, let's talk about this book we're going to talk about. So this week's episode, we were actually supposed to be discussing a novel called The Rose Bargain by Sasha Painton Smith. But unfortunately, we didn't realize until after we said that we're going to read this book that the publisher actually pushed back the release date. So instead, we decided to read a book from Sam's TBR, which is called The Very Secret Society of Irregular Witches by Sangu, Mandann. And since this novel is off of Sam's TBR bookshelf, do you mind telling our listeners what this novel is all about?
Okay, so to be fair, when we went into this book, I had no idea what it was about. It's the first time in a long time I picked a book. I had no idea what it was about except for the title. Anyway, as one of the few witches in Britain, Mika Moon knows she has to hide her magic, keep her head down, and stay away from other witches so their powers don't mingle and draw attention. As an orphan who lost her parents at a young age and was raised by strangers, she's used to being alone and she follows the rules, with one exception, an online account where she posts videos pretending to be a witch. She thinks no one will take it seriously, but someone does. An unexpected message arrives begging her to travel to the remote and mysterious Nowhere House to teach three young witches how to control their magic. It breaks all of the rules, but Mika goes anyway and is immediately tangled up in the lives and secrets of not only her three charges, but also an absent archaeologist, a retired actor, two long suffering caretakers, and Jamie, the handsome and prickly librarian of Nowhere House, would do anything to protect the children as far as he's concerned. A stranger like Mika is a threat, an irritatingly appealing threat. As Mika begins to find her place at Nowhere House, the thought of belonging somewhere begins to feel like a real possibility. But magic isn't the only danger in the world, and when peril comes knocking at their door, Mika will need to decide whether to risk everything to protect a found family she didn't know she was looking for. What did you think?
Before I even get to this, can I confess something to you, Sam?
Okay.
So, I may have read this book in one day because I read the wrong book.
You know what? That's been my biggest fear that was going to happen to us one of these days, that we were going to both like get out of the podcast and realize we read the wrong book.
I read another witchy book and I was like, "Oh, it's this book." In my head, I thought it was this book. I thought it was like it was
X Hex?
the hex. Yes. That's what I thought it was. So I was almost done with that book and I was like, "Oh, let me go see what book we're going to be reading next week." And I went to go check and I was like, "Is this not the book we're supposed to?" And I realized it was not the book. So I read this book in one day because I
You
messed
know,
up.
it was bound to happen at some point. At least you finished the book, and I'm proud of you for that. Because I'm really afraid of like the one day that one of us reads the wrong book, makes it to the podcast, and goes, "What are you talking about?"
Well, here's the thing. I'll be honest with you. Our episodes have been so switched around just due to family emergencies, ice storms, and just everything and everything. So I read this book in one day. Regardless, I actually really, really loved it. It was very cozy, which I loved, and it had a very cozy magic feel to it. Although sometimes I will admit that other novels we read that were labeled as cozy fantasy, I was bored out of my mind. And so when reading this one, I was a little bit worried that I was going to be bored too, because yes, cozy fantasy, cozy magic is very cutesy, it's very fun, but it can be very boring. But this novel wasn't boring to me. I absolutely loved the characters, especially Ian and Ken. They cracked me up. I loved the children. I loved the plot line. I felt like this book was well written, is very poetic, is very cutesy. I loved it. 5 stars, or really 4.5 stars. I guess there was like a part of me that was very kind of wishing they went more into certain people's pass. But regardless, I thought this book was well written and I could see why everyone really liked it. So, what did you think, Sam?
I don't know what I was expecting with this book. It wasn't what we got. It was like I knew it was called the cozy fantasy, and I knew it had magic and witches and like a little bit of a romance plot line. But honestly, that was like the only parts I knew about this book. I didn't realize that she was gonna be like going and like tutoring these kids and stuff. But as it went on, like I loved this book. I had so much fun with it. Terracotta. Loved her. Oh my gosh. She cracked me up the whole time. And she's 8 years old. I had to keep reminding myself she's 8 years old in the book. And she is all kinds of sassy. And she's so much fun. And like Rosetta was amazing. And then there was a third girl, it was like Alta, something like that. She didn't really get a lot of time in the book. Like I kept kind of forgetting there was a third one every once in a while. Overall, I had a lot of fun with it. Her and Jamie, like I like the banter back and forth they have with each other. Ian and Ken are fabulous. Was it Ian who like kept trying to meddle in Jamie's love life? Amazing.
My favorite thing is when he locked them in a closet together and she's like, "I'm literally a
And she's like,
witch."
he keeps forgetting I have magic. But like I had so much fun with it and I really enjoyed it and I'm glad it lived up to its hype.
It felt like a little bit like practical magic in some aspects, where it's very like cozy, fun. Also, you have those snarky kids. I guess in some ways it's a mixture between like the sounds of music and practical magic. Just combine those two and you get this book, which is super cute. I also was really, really quite surprised about the romance in this book. And that's the only reason why I kind of gave it 4.5 stars, is because I wasn't the hugest fan of the romance in the book. I felt like it was a little bit, not that I was rushed. I honestly could have done without it. Like, I think that I would have been happy if this book was just like found family, her realizing her magic and stuff like this. And I would have loved that aspect. But regardless, I thought this one was really good. If you're wanting a very quick, fluffy book, obviously I read it in one day, which may or may not have been my fault, but definitely check it out. It was so good. Anyways, do you want to go into our spoiler section, Sam?
Sure, just one quick question, low-key. How was the X-Hex? Because I want to read that one too.
Oh my God, it was so funny. It's so good. You would like it. My bad. Because Sam, guess what? I was like, oh, I'm glad Sam chose this book because I actually own it. I can't believe I did that, Sam. I really can't. It's funny. It's funny to think about now. So I do apologize if I don't really know too much of this book, because I read it at, I think I listened to it at 2.5 speed. And then when I got home, I read it. I physically read it because I was like, I need to read, because I can read really fast. So I was like, I need to sit down. I just need to drink 3 shots of espresso and just go straight into this book. Let's go. Let's go into our spoilers section. If you have not read this book and you don't want to be spoiled, check out last week's episode in which we read. What book did we read? Did we read a book last week? Yes, we did.
Yeah, we read Dating and Dragons.
We did. Our first book of the year. It was coming to me. It just takes a minute, okay? It feels like it was been years with the week we had. But if you don't want to be spoiled, check out last week's episode. We read Dating and Dragons, which was a really cute YA novel. If you have already read the book, then definitely check out this rest of the episode in which we're going to be going into a more spoiler section of the book. So, Sam, can I please just talk about Terracotta and Mika?
Yes.
Listen, there is some tension between Terracotta and Mika, because the fact that Terracotta doesn't want Mika there. Eventually, Terracotta has a magical mishap where she decides that she's going to levitate, even though Mika kept telling her, like, don't do it, don't do it. She's like, I'm going to do it because I'm a brat. And she starts to flow away. Mika tries to save her. Mika actually ends up getting hurt, ends up in hibernation because of it. And afterwards, Terracotta and her start to get along. Do you think that Terracotta would have lightened up to Mika if Mika never got hurt?
No, I think Terracotta was like, I mean, she was stubborn, and even like Jamie had made the comment that like he didn't trust Micah, and Terracotta was taking a lot of her cues from Jamie, and so she was just very stubborn. And I feel like too, she's kind of gotten away with making like weird comments about like killing people and being just like outrageous and left field with like no consequences, and then her actions finally had consequences, and I feel like that kind of like clicked into her brain, like, oh no, like the adults are making sense and I need to listen to them. But I feel like that's most children. That children push boundaries and they take cues from the adults around them. And so that makes sense that she would do that, even though I don't understand her obsession with death, but that's neither here nor there.
That was one of my favorite scenes. And I wrote it down, of her and Micah when they first met, because Micah says to her, like, oh, like, that's a lovely dress. And Terracotta beams and says, thank you. I'm wearing it because I'm going to a funeral later. And she slipped nimbly into the chair, apparently satisfied with her outfit and had been duly noted. Micah goes, you might be. And she goes, yes, it depends. On what? On you.
It was amazing. I love Terracotta.
This show is like literally like, I'm wearing this nice outfit because you're going to die soon. That is some serial killer stuff if I've ever heard of it. This show's crazy, but I loved her. I love her sass. I also really like the scene where they went to the toy store too.
That was fun. I loved just seeing like Rosetta opening up to like the boys. She found people who had the same interests as her, and like that's such a fun feeling when you find people who just genuinely have the same interests. But then it was also funny too that like they were fighting over something and she caused a dang tornado basically because she was upset.
I love that scene because it just shows like that she could have friends. And also part of me is like, can the writer make another book where Rosetta like grows up with these boys and falls in love with one of them, please? So that would be cute.
That would be amazing. She wrote another book, and I'm curious what that book's about, or if it has to do with one of the other witches.
Oh, does it have to do with this book?
I don't know. I have to look, but the cover is very similar, so maybe it's the same world. I don't know. I'm super interested because I have to go look at it because maybe it's one of the girls.
That'd be really interesting. I would absolutely read that if she did come out with a book that has to do with one of the girls. So, my question to you is, did you like the subplot line of Jamie's family?
I felt like it was unnecessary.
Yeah, me too, kind of.
I mean, because it really didn't add anything to the plot other than for Mika and Jamie to like kind of have an excuse to go somewhere together. There could have been other ways they could have gotten together. Like, we don't see him go like talk to his mom or talk to his brothers. We just see him come out with his dad's journals. And it's like that whole section like began and
Yeah.
ended in that one chapter. There was no real reason for it outside of they made out in the woods later when they were coming back.
Ooh, spicy. I honestly thought there was gonna be more drama between him and his brothers.
I don't know. Maybe because it's supposed to be cozy. It's not supposed to be like overly dramatic. But I'm like, what was the point of introducing the mom and the brothers and the journals if it had nothing to do with the rest of the storyline?
It's just filler, I guess.
It was just there. Like, again, just for them to go make out in the woods and collect mushrooms. I don't know.
I mean, honestly, they could have made out in the woods at any time. They didn't need a brothers who abused him and a mother that abandoned him. But
Yeah, because he went like full details of like, yeah, they beat me with my dad's belt, and it was as if my dad was supposed to be beating me, and I was like, what? What is happening?
yeah, I remember when I got to that point, I literally had paused and I was like, wait a minute. Did I just read that? Then I go back and look at it and be like, yes, I did. Were you surprised when you found out that Lillian was actually dead?
Yes, I was surprised to find out she was dead. I was also surprised to find out that Primrose was her twin. I figured it out about 5 seconds before they said it. It was like, as it was coming to fruition, I was like, they're sisters. But then I expected them to be like, they're twins. And I'm like, what is going on? I'm so confused right now.
I thought that Primrose was actually Lillian. And when she first moved in, she was like trying to see photos of Lillian. And I think it was Jamie or Ian was like, oh, she doesn't like having her photo taken. So you won't ever see a photo of her. So I was like, watch Lillian be Primrose.
Thought it did cross my mind at like one point, and then when they found the bones, I was like, "Oh, JK, never mind." But then they were like, "Hey, they're twins." Because I mean, Primrose, outside of just being like a pain in the butt, I was like, "What is your purpose in this story?" And then I was like, "There it is."
Look at the kids who decided to bring back Primrose's, or no, I'm sorry, Lillian's bones and then decide to animate her for Eric. So Eric is a solicitor, which, what is a solicitor?
It's like a lawyer for like wills and stuff.
Okay. He's being very nosy. He comes back in the picture and they're trying to see if where Lillian is. And then the kids are like, we have magic. We're going to animate her bones and put clothes on her. Who thought that was a good idea, Sam?
Terracotta was probably full on leading that shit. And it was like, come on, guys, we're just gonna do
Like,
this.
they have Jamie, they have Ian, they have Ken, they have Lucille, they have all these parents, and none of them said, maybe don't dress up the skeleton.
What adults are gonna fight kids with magic?
That's true. Although I will say that I love the fact that Terracotta is a middle child because I'm a middle child. And let me just say, as middle children, we're a little chaotic. So I love the chaotic nature that Terracotta has completely. Another chaotic character I love was Ian.
Ian's amazing. I love Ian.
Me too. And also, though, was very sad about Ian, though, finding out that his mom was a witch and that his mom died of cancer. And I thought they were going to go more into that, but they really didn't. So that was like a little disappointing to me because I feel like within this book, we got a lot of background story to the characters, but they were never important to the story. And I guess in some ways, yes, it was to develop the characters, but it just felt like you were given all this trauma and you're like, okay, that's it.
That's all. That's what we get. We get a whole bunch of trauma bonded adults.
Is this writer tricking us thinking that we like these characters because we're trauma bonded to them?
Maybe you just kind of feel for them. There's a conversation that Mika has that I felt was like a very interesting conversation to have. And that is the difference between being nice and being kind. And I loved that conversation. Because how many people in our lives do we know that everyone's like, they're the nicest person you've ever met, but then when you're like, you really paying attention, it's like low key, like you're a terrible person. And all I'm thinking of is like Glinda and Elphaba from Wicked. Glinda is nice, but Elphaba is kind. It's like, man, I'm like, that makes a lot of freaking sense because there's people who, if they have an audience, they'll do the nice thing because they get the pat on the back versus doing the kind thing, which is generally what people don't see in front of them right away. It's like something you do in the background. And I'm like, that makes so much sense.
It's funny that you bring that up because I actually wrote down the quote because it really stuck to me where they said, niceness is all about what we do when other people are looking. Kindness, on the other hand, runs deep. Kindness is what happens when no one is looking. That really hit deep with me. And so I like made sure I saved it. But I completely agree with the whole concept of like, yes, you can be nice, but kindness is your soul is because people can easily tell when someone's being fake nice or when someone's being nice for a reason. I really, really did like that part too of them talking about that aspect. Another quote I really like too is when someone leaves, all you can do is leave a window open for them so that one day, if they choose, they can come back.
This book really had a lot of really good quotable moments. I loved it. And I feel like this is going to be like a comfort book for me for a long time.
Yeah, I can completely see that. Do you think that Primrose was lying about why they couldn't have so many witches together? Do you think that after, the book ends, the witches are going to be becoming more of a covenant and coming more together, hanging out together?
I kind of wish there was like an exciting moment between Primrose and her sister of like, because they're two witches that were together and something really bad happened. Not hoping, but I was hoping to like have a story of why she wants to separate the witches so badly. But I really feel like the end is showing us that they're building this like good community and that they will build a coven.
If they do, I hope that they build a coven or they build a school or something. And also, they need to fix that curse in which all the mothers die.
Right? That was a little gruesome. And then like nothing came of that too. That was kind of like a dropped storyline because they talked about like a whole bunch of witches coming together and then getting the curse. So I was thinking like maybe the secret society of witches get together and they break the curse. Like you brought it up, might as well fix it.
I thought for sure she was going to get pregnant and then they're going to have to like break the curse. But, maybe there'd be a second book.
Sequel.
Listen, the orphans need justice, okay?
Right?
Let them have their mothers, please. So, is there anything else you'd like to add about this book, Sam?
I'm glad I finally read it. It's one of those books that like I've seen around for a while and people are like it's really good, but no one really ever talks about it, so I didn't really know what the book was actually about. And I'm glad. I'm glad I went into this book blind. Obviously, if you listen to the summary at the beginning of this podcast, you're obviously not going to go into this book blind. Or if you made it this far, you probably already read it. But I definitely feel like this is a book that you need to go into blind, not fully understanding what they're going to be talking about, because I feel like it hits your soul so much deeper when you're just letting the story unfold.
I think it's such a great book. I think this is such a cozy, in some ways, I guess, magic, fantasy, I don't know what to call it, book. Definitely check it out. I think that you will love it. Maybe don't read it in one day like I did, but you would definitely love it. If you guys are curious, next week we're going to be reading a book by Emma Lord called The Rival. This novel follows Sadie, who thinks she is finally going to be rid of her high school rival, Seb. But when Seb is pulled off the wait list and admitted to Sadie's dream school, Sadie must compete with him all over again, and this time is to win a spot on the school's famous zine. Now, not only is she dealing with the mayhem of the lovable, chaotic family she has, but also hiding her writing talents from them, as well as her own self-doubts, but she's also having to come to terms with her feelings for Seb, because the more that Sadie and Seb compete, the more they notice that there's something simmering between the two. So if you guys do want to help push our podcast out there, please remember to rate us on Spotify, as it does help us out. Also, remember to check us out anywhere else you can find a podcast. We do have a YouTube channel, which I am going to start updating on that. That is on my list of stuff to do. It might be very awkward. I'm not really used to doing YouTube anymore, but since TikTok is going, unfortunately, bye, I do want to start focusing on our YouTube channel, and we might do other social media too. I think me and Sam are kind of in the process of deciding where we're going to go, but definitely keep you guys updated on our Instagram.
So we're on Instagram. We're Just One Page Official there. We're Just One Page Official on Threads, and we are also Just One Page Official on Blue Sky.
And unfortunately, we're not Just One Page on TikTok. Well, I wonder though, could you still see our page if we're not on it, or is all our content deleted?
So the rumor right now is when we wake up on Sunday that when we open up the app, it's going to be black.
Oh, that's so sad.
That's the rumor. But the other rumor is that it'll keep running until it dies, basically, like when it gets too buggy.
My thing is like, I don't care if I open up the app and my thing's black, but what I care about is that hopefully other people can find our content.
Yeah.
And I wonder if our content stays there.
I mean, if it goes black, probably not. I don't know. We'll have to see. Sunday will be the kind of like come to Jesus moment of finding out what is actually going to happen. So it'll be very interesting. But once we kind of see what's going on, we'll definitely keep you guys updated on like our next steps and stuff.
Yeah, of course. But anyways, go read a book. It'll be okay. And we'll see you guys next week. Okay.
Yeah.
Bye.
Bye.